It's time for another episode of the Cultural Hall, and I'm excited. This may be one of the greatest successes ever attempted in the Cultural Hall, or it might be one of our greatest failures. We'll see. It is a news episode, and co-hosting the news today with me is Taylor Westbrook, whom has never been on the show. Taylor, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Richie. I'm excited to be here. It's nervous as heck to be here as well, but we'll see how it goes, like you said.
Now, Taylor sent me an email and he says, I'm going to share it actually with us. It says, "Hey, Richie, listening to articles of news right now. Loving it as always." Thank you, Taylor. I've wondered something the last couple times I've listened. Have you considered, slash, would you consider adding another member to the rotation who is of a younger generation? Sometimes a topic comes up on the show, not podcast. Thank you, by the way, Taylor. If you would have just left it at podcast, we would be in trouble. And I wonder what someone close to my age, 26, could add to the conversation. P.S. You're all young at heart, so don't take that the wrong way. P.P.S. This is definitely me shamelessly throwing my hat in the ring. If you do choose to inject some youth into the cultural hall, thanks for all the laughs, brother Taylor Westbrook. So I reached out to Taylor and I said, "All right, you're doing the next one." And he said, "What? You're not going to talk to me?" Because we didn't talk on the phone. We didn't hop on a Zoom call or anything like that. And I said, "No, let's just try it. Let's see what happens." And that's what this is.
Yeah, I was definitely expecting more of a like copy and paste answer. Thank you for your thought. We'll take that into consideration. And Richie's email just said, "All right, I'll bite. You're on the next episode."
Yep.
For a second, I was regretting my choice of words there, but I was like, you know what? Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's give it a try.
Here's the thing. In my life, I have found far more successes from just being like, let's try it. Because listen, and I can already tell that it's going to be a great fit. But let's say that you came on and just were terrible, just the worst thing ever.
Mhm.
It is a memorable thing that we would all, everyone in the hall would look back and go, "Do you remember when you had Taylor on? What a disaster that was." Or like when I bring on a new co-host, it sets a lower bar to where people would be like, "Well, he or she is terrible, but not nearly as terrible as Taylor was." So I
There
knew
you
that
go.
we would win no matter what. And already, like I say, you have been great.
Perfect. All right. Well, I'm glad that there's little to no expectation here, so I'll do my okayest.
I'll do my ist.
Yeah.
So tell me, you've told us a little bit about it. Your name Taylor, obviously. You are
Yep.
26.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, church experience, all that kind of stuff.
All right. So I grew up in Bountiful,
Okay.
north of Salt Lake. Same house my mom grew up in. The family's been there a long time. On my mom's side, I mean, church, been in the church since the beginning. Early apostles, early pioneers, things like that. Um, I didn't really participate in church much when I was young. It was kind of like one of those things where when I turned 12, the ward would work really hard to get us active so I could get ordained as a deacon, and then we'd
Hmm.
stop coming again, and then again at 14 and 16 and so on. And then right around when I was like 17, I really became active in the church and decided to go on a mission a couple months after graduating high school. So I served my mission in Cusco, Peru.
Okay.
Coolest mission you could go to. Was more of a vacation. I know you're not supposed to think of it like that, but it was amazing.
Well, wait
Um,
now. Tell me a little bit about that. Because when you said Cusco, I immediately thought of the Emperor's New Groove, and then I was gone as far as thinking about what your mission might be like. But what, like, it's still work. Like, you're not able to be like, "Oh, today I went swimming, and then we went out on the catamaran and all that kind of stuff." So why was it more of a vacation?
oh, sure. I guess more because, whereas here I see missionaries on P Day just kind of like walking around or hanging out at the church. We were like going to Machu Picchu
Jeez.
and going to all the different ruins and seeing all the tourist sites. So obviously, yeah, there's tons of work to do in Cusco. As far as just how cool of a place it was to visit, it felt a little bit sometimes like we had the lucky draw for sure, being able to
Sure.
serve in such a amazing, beautiful place. That is the first thought I had when I opened my call, though. I had no idea where Peru was. I hadn't read the language yet. I was like, speaking Peruvian, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then I thought, Cusco, that's the emperor. Yeah. So that's really all I knew about it going in, but it was an amazing place for sure.
Now, you mentioned something else too, that you right after you graduated, essentially. So obviously, serving after the age changes happened, which for anyone listening now, they're like, "Yeah, that's been a decade plus, my friend." Uh, is that wild to be like, "Da da 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 da, Cusco," and now you're off and gone, or did that seem like the next natural step for you to take?
I mean, I guess it was a little weird, but so my sophomore year of high school is when that age change happened.
Mhm.
So I kind of saw these two waves of missionaries go out right after. So I think it seemed a little bit of a normal step for me. I didn't really excel in school, was really apprehensive about the aspect of or the prospect of going to college. So I was like, great, a good excuse not to. I didn't leave until like November after graduating. So for a few months, I was kind of just hanging out,
Yeah,
working, all that good stuff. But it definitely was interesting because there's such a cultural thing with leaving right after high school. Like,
sure.
you go to 7 farewells every Sunday, and it was definitely an interesting thing. But yeah, I feel like for me it was good to go right after.
Yeah, that way you could kick the can, that education can down the road. You're like, "Man,
Yeah,
we'll worry about that another time. Let's go."
yeah, for sure, for sure. We'll definitely get to that at some point.
So when you came home, about what you thought it would be like, I mean, you said sort of looking back on it as a vacation time, a great success, not very much success. What was the church and like that aspect of the mission like?
I feel like I had some good success. Had some amazing converts. In my first area, we baptized an entire family, and that was just amazing.
Cool.
Son of the family ended up serving a mission. He left on his mission like 3 months before I went home.
Oh, wow.
Um, so yeah, definitely saw some good success. Yeah, it was good. I liked it. Coming home was a little weird. I definitely didn't, I think coming home from a mission, you have all these ideas of how you're gonna just excel at life and be the greatest return missionary that has ever walked the planet.
Uh-huh.
Humbly, of course. And then that didn't happen. So that was kind of fun. But
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty exciting. So that means you what, been back, if I'm doing math right, about 5 or 6 years, is that right?
let's see, I got home in October of 2017. So yeah, 6 years, a little over
Yeah,
six
six and
years.
a half years. Are you a married person? Did you go to school then afterwards? Give me an idea of some of that stuff.
So I did some school and kind of decided, I don't know if this is for me. It's on the back burner. We're not
Sure.
giving up on it for good, but for now I'm kind of comfortable in my career and everything. So I actually met so okay, last day of my mission in Cusco, I met a family that included a girl.
Mhm.
They were from California.
Okay.
Um, and found out she was moving to Salt Lake in a couple weeks. So, bells are going off, things are
Mhm.
clicking into place. And we started dating when I got home, which was the next day. So I guess more we started dating when she moved there a couple weeks later. And we got married. We are now divorced, actually.
Oh,
Um,
no.
yeah,
That
so
story took a left turn where I didn't think that
right.
was going.
It was
Okay.
definitely it was, people loved hearing that story. So now the story has a new ending. So now it's fun to tell again. So not fun, not like it,
Not like fun, but
yeah, fun to see the reactions, like
sure.
how red Richie's face is right now.
Yeah. Well, listen, from one divorced person to another, let me tell you that 2.0 is always an upgrade. Should you choose to do that, I'm loving 2.0, so not to worry. Not to worry. Plus, you got it for forever, right? And you had a good experience. And the thing is, when I worked at BYU, and there would be people that would come up to me and be really distraught that they weren't married, 21, 22, 23, sometimes 24, and I would tell them in somewhat seriousness, just marry anyone who will marry you. It's not going to be the one that you'll be with the rest of your life, so just get it done.
Get
Get
that
all of
person.
the things that you think marriage is going to be and figure out exactly what you don't want in a partner, and then, don't mix your finances, don't make it complicated, and then start looking again for 2.0 and you'll be great.
You should teach a marriage class
I
at church.
no, I should not. Well, cool. So then, so professionally, as vague or as detailed as you want to be, what do you do for a living?
Yeah, I am an assistant manager at a plasma center. So I'm sure many listeners have heard of or have donated plasma probably when they were in college. So I just kind of oversee the day-to-day operations. So I started in this industry during COVID.
Okay.
Previously, I worked as a medical interpreter, so translating in hospitals for patients that only speak Spanish.
Oh, cool. That's got to be
Yeah,
super rewarding. Yeah.
It was awesome. It
Yeah.
was a great way to, keep up my Spanish after my mission. Um, but once COVID hit, nobody was really going to the doctor
Hmm.
unless it was an emergency, and we were like on contracts, like they'd tell you like a week in advance, like, hey, there's this appointment. So didn't really have work to do. I had donated plasma before, and I was like, I mean, I see this place opening up, let's check it out. And it's just been a really good fit. So been there, oh, it'll be 4 years in May, which is crazy to think that that's when the pandemic started. But
Yeah. It also probably strikes me that with some of the characters that you get in at a plasma center, and you are a gentleman of size, you throw some weight around, that probably once or twice you've had to be like the get out of here or a come on, move along kind of guy.
absolutely. My boss calls me the escalator. In his opinion, I take situations that could be very calm and I escalate them. I don't think so. I think I just handle business sometimes. But yes, there have definitely been times where people, people think you're messing with their money if you don't let them donate and things like that. So I've definitely had to escort some folks out of the building, but
Yeah.
never with hands, just with, imposing with my size. But I'm also, maybe I might not be as big as I look on camera, but
Yeah. Well, I
they
mean,
say
listen,
the camera adds 100 pounds, right? Like that.
oh, that's what it is. You're
Yeah.
actually very scrawny in real life, but the
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
camera that
Super skinny.
at 100 pounds. Well, cool. Anything else that you feel like we should know about you as we kind of wrap up these opening exercises? Then we'll take a break and do some news.
I don't think so. I'm sure I'll think of something later though.
Okay, cool. I'm trying to think if there's anything exciting on my end worth sharing. Uh, mm, oh, I had an interesting exchange with the bishop of my ward again. So I have in our building there is this long hallway. Just imagine like the longest, like if you've ever seen the movie Green Mile, which no one has seen because it's rated R, obviously, but you have that long hallway, and there's like the kind of glossed out windows on the right hand side, and then just straight white brick for the entire thing. And I maybe also am an escalator of sorts. I went up to my bishop and I said, "Can we please put something in this hallway, something that will remind us of Jesus, or since this chapel has been in my particular area, let's do a history of the church in this area, like a chronological. It's got plenty of room. We could start when the church first came to the area and go all the way." And he just sort of grabs my hand and goes, "That's a nice idea."
That
So
sounds like the response I was expecting from you. So
yeah. Well, that's a nice idea, Taylor, but we're not doing any more of this episode. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to do some actual articles of news. Here in the second half of articles of news, we do actual articles of news. Hit it, Peter. And away we go. I want to start here because we always ask for you guys to do reviews. And when people do it, I want to be able to reward those people by saying, hey, Chris at Alpine Lakes Travel, whose name is actually Owen, he wrote a review that says, quote, really enjoyed episode 755, the best whatever of 2023. The quick hits of the 4 award presenters, accompanied with the full richiness of the master of ceremonies, gave this episode the feel of the Golden Globes or the Oscars. Keep up the great work. How are you going to outdo your great efforts in 2023? I, as all the other listeners, can't wait to see where you're going to take us and what you will teach us in 2024. Thank you, Owen, for that review. If wherever you get the Cultural Hall has a place for you to leave a review, please do it. It means something to us, and it allows us to feel like you were willing to take a couple minutes and say, hey, thanks for that. I wanted to start in the first actual like news story. I heard this and saw this a bunch online this last week because the Community of Christ has just called their first female prophet and president. Now, this is the Cultural Hall. We are obviously, with the mainstream Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They called, I believe it's Stacy, although it's spelled Stassi, so maybe it's Stassi, who had most recently served as a member of the faith's first presidency, and now that is the president and prophet of the church. I wonder, and some people have speculated online, do you feel, Taylor, like this is a big deal that will impact the mainstream LDS church, or is this just an interesting kind of side oh, this is what the community of Christ is doing.
That's interesting. I feel, I mean, I don't know a ton about the community of Christ. I feel just with how small their church is in comparison, I don't know how much of a impact it'll have. Maybe just some members bringing up like, "Hey, they're doing this. Why can't this be something in our church as well?"
Hmm.
I think it's for me, it's nothing more than, oh, that's cool. I also, this is just kind of random, but I noticed in the quote that she said, I was kind of struck by the difference in like language. It seems like that maybe that's just her, maybe it's all their leaders, I don't know, but is very poetic. In the tapestry of gratitude woven with threads of humility, I find myself with the church. Like, I was just kind of taken back, like, huh, that's very poetic of her, the way she framed it. But yeah, I don't know how much of an impact it'll have, but it's definitely interesting.
Yeah,
And the previous president hasn't passed away, as I understand, right?
yeah. As I understand it, it's just and that's another thing that I think people sort of point to and go, yeah, listen, if and we've talked about this here in the Cultural Hall a few times. Yeah, it can be a life calling, unless someone doesn't want to, and then let them not be that for a little bit. That's a talk for a different time, a
Mhm.
speech, a rant for a different time. It is worth noting though, let you not downplay that they have 250,000 members in 59 countries, Taylor.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
And I think it's also interesting because there are some when they leave the mainstream Church of Jesus Christ of Latter Day Saints, they find um, either as a tradition, or I'm sorry, as a transition place or as a relocation place within the community of Christ because it holds a lot of the same tenets as the mainstream church, but doesn't have some of the other things. Women leadership being, maybe foremost one of those things that the community of Christ has that we don't as much have. And so maybe it's interesting to me or a little bit more um, than just kind of exciting news for that church to me, because I think that people go, well, hey, other people, other groups, they are changing. Is this a change that's in store for us? And obviously we believe in revelation and all of the things that come along with that. But I know that, the more people that are doing something else, there definitely becomes, if at very least, a social pressure to be like, well, hey, everybody else is, so why can't we?
That's a good point. I also wonder, though, I don't know how inclined the church would be to uh it seems like the community of Christ is like a church that the church wants to make sure that there's a distinction
Hmm.
because they broke off from the church and so on and so forth. So maybe it could even have the opposite effect. Like, well, okay, well, they did that. We want to make sure that, we keep this line between what is the church and what is this reformed church. And so, but yeah, I mean, I guess as more and more churches start to include more female leadership and other things, I wonder if down the line it would be more likely. Of course, revelation, all that
Sure,
stuff. But
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's like one of the great things I was listening to. I think it was a Mormon Land episode the other day where they're like, well, one of the great blessings of a church that has that believes in divine revelation is that it's like, yeah, there's nothing that's off the table. If you believe that the prophet can receive revelation for anything, it's like today it's this, tomorrow it's that, and the only thing separating this from that is the prophet saying, "Thus saith the Lord," and then we're off to the races. So
Absolutely.
now you had a story that in the preparing of news I didn't actually have, and I'd love it if you'd share that with me.
Yeah, so I was kind of telling Richie that I believe it's been a few years since I started listening to the show, but I think one of the first episodes, or maybe the first episode I heard, was one where Molly Bonner was on and was talking about different things, and you guys mentioned the Genesis group,
Mm-hmm.
which, if people don't know, it's a group within the church for Black Latter-day Saints. So ever since then, I've been attending, and it's been amazing.
Now it's worth pointing out for people who are listening: are you a Black Latter Day Saint?
Yes, I am. I'm
Okay.
half black, half white. But yes, I would say I more identify as black.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, but anyway, so we have a monthly devotional first Sunday of every month. And this month, the main focus was reorganizing the presidency. So President Stovall had been the president for the last 6 years, along with his counselors. But Elder Pearson, who is the Utah area president, was in attendance that first Sunday of this month to call the new presidency. So, and there's some very interesting people on here. I mentioned to Richie, I think a couple of these you should try and have on the show because they're very interesting. So the new president of the Genesis Group is Ron L. Hugh. He is a wildly successful businessman. He currently is the senior vice president of products and marketing for Deseret Book.
Hmm.
He held a similar role at Qualtrics, HP, Adobe, Walmart, Microsoft. He's also the founder of a company called Breathing Inclusivity, mostly where he helps companies, find ways to be more inclusive, things like that.
Wow, that's awesome.
Um, yeah, he was not too long ago, within the last year, he was the speaker at the Genesis Devotional. So I think that's a big part of him receiving this new calling. So yeah, very interesting person. He was on All In at one point.
Okay.
Yeah, very, very interesting guy. The first counselor is Roy Banks. He is a five-time CEO. Most recently was the CEO at Weave, that company down in Utah County. I don't know much about what they do though, but
Yeah,
I see
I've just seen the large building, and on the side of the building in the lit up letters it says Weave, and I go, oh, okay, that's the building.
that must
Yeah.
be Weave. There
Yeah,
you go.
they're there.
Yeah, five-time CEO. He's also a veteran of the Navy. What I found interesting is that he mentioned in his testimony that that meeting where he was being called as the first counselor is the first time he has attended a Genesis group meeting. So
Mm,
it's kind of like I wonder how they even found these people,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, no hate, it's all good. And then the second counselor is named Adam Hine, and he is a pediatric dentist up in the Layton Roy area and former football player at BYU.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it was a great meeting. It was one of those meetings, where you get the new bishopric or you get the new leadership and everybody gets to share their testimony.
Hmm.
This was a little bit intense for me. So the president, first and second counselor, and the president's wife of the former presidency bore their testimonies.
Uh-huh.
Then the president, first, second counselor, and secretary of the new presidency bore their testimonies. And then Elder Pearson spoke. It went well over, and my impatient brain that wasn't thinking of Jesus but was thinking of dinner was like, let's get this going. But
Yeah. How long are those first of the month meetings typically?
so typically there's 30 minutes of the Deborah Bonner Unity Gospel Choir performance.
Hmm.
So it's kind of before the devotional officially starts. They're just
Hmm.
singing. And then it starts, and it's usually about an hour and a half. So about 2 hours total. I think an hour of the devotional part would be just perfect, but it tends to go a
And
little.
and they don't do, it's not like a sacrament meeting. They
No.
don't pass the sacrament or anything like that. This is just a devotional on the first Sunday. Is it at nighttime during the day? Can anyone attend? Do you need to be a person of color? Tell me all about that. If people are listening to this going, that sounds awesome. Could I go?
Yeah, it's in the evening, so the choir starts singing at 5:30. It's open to everybody. It's not just for people of color. That is the main focus of the Genesis group. That's the purpose that the first presidency gave it when it officially organized it over 50 years ago. Um, but yeah, anyone's welcome there. It's really, I mean, we're in Utah. Let's not kid ourselves. So it's about half, maybe 40% black members, and the rest, a mix of
Hmm.
everybody. But yeah, so it's not, it says on their website, it's not to replace regular church attendance or worship or anything like that. So everyone still attends in their home wards, and then that evening we have a meeting with the choir, and then a Black History spotlight. So somebody will share a little bit of somebody that they have researched or found in Black history. Then one of the choir members will lead us in a song of praise. So those songs that you'll hear in a Baptist church in the South, they
Hmm.
teach the whole congregation that we all sing it together.
That's awesome.
Um, and then the devotional speaker, and then usually there's about maybe 20 to 30 minutes of testimony. So it's like your second testimony meeting of the day.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's amazing. There's clapping, there's cheering. It's not as reverent, but in the best way possible. I recommend anyone go. We meet in Draper every first Sunday of the month.
Now tell me this for you, how has that, because it's an extra meeting, like you pointed out, how has that helped your faith? Or has it?
It definitely has. I'll be totally honest.
Do it.
So I heard about Genesis back in 2020, which for many reasons was a trying time for everybody.
Mhm.
Um, for me as a member in the church, 2020 with the George Floyd protests and all the other protests and tension going on, it was starting to get a little bit difficult to remain totally complacent in the church.
Hmm.
I think 2020, it showed a lot of people's true colors. And I heard a lot of things from members that really took me aback regarding race and things like that. And it kind of made me realize, like, wow, we have a way to go, not just in our country, but within our church as well. And so Genesis stopped meeting for a while during 2020, just like sacrament meeting and all that. So when I attended the first Genesis meeting during COVID, it was just such like a sigh of relief just to be able to, share that part of me and my culture with other people who understand it. You know, I don't think it's good to always, separate. Obviously
Yeah.
we don't bring back segregation or
Yeah.
anything like that. But growing up in Bountiful, I didn't know a lot of Black kids. I didn't know a lot about Black culture. It's something I've had to kind of delve more into as an adult. And so um, yeah, Genesis has been huge for me for sure.
Now, last question about this: when people attend, is it like Sabbath attendance dress? Are you wearing shirts and ties, or is it more cash as far as that goes?
Both. Lots of people are just wearing what they wore earlier, and then there are plenty of people who are not members and they're wearing a t-shirt and jeans.
Cool.
So definitely not required, but I think, Latter-day Saints would just be more comfortable wearing exactly what they normally wear because they're in the chapel and it's very, there's an opening prayer and there's a presiding priesthood body and everything. So yeah.
Yeah. How long until you talk in that? Is that coming up soon? Do we need to
Oh,
suggest your name there?
few years. Give me a few
Yep.
years to warm up.
Just send them an email saying that you're interested, and then they'll be there.
Yeah, I think I learned my lesson on that to really pick where I send my emails.
Just make sure you're ready. All right, let's get into some other news. I appreciate you sharing about that. I have never attended, and I've always
You should.
intended to. So now that I know that there's someone there that I could go and sit with and not be like that one guy that's like, "Hey guys, hey," I can have someone to sit by. Maybe
Absolutely.
I'll join you. Couple things that I thought were sort of interesting. This from the church newsroom that the Young Men General Presidency now has new social media channels. On the 16th of January, they launched an Instagram and Facebook and quickly gained a lot of followers. Here is the thing with this. I think this is a direct reflection on Emily Bell Freeman, who is so great at social media and has had such a great social presence. She gets called, she gets in, and she goes, "Guys, what are we doing here? Let's do some." The young women have had this on lock for probably 6 months, and then they're looking across the aisle at the gentleman, going, "Are you going to do this? Are you going to follow the example here? Can we go ahead and do this?" And now they have, and it's a place that your young men can follow along, and it's not like stuffy. Maybe that's not the right word for it, but it is a place for young men to, find, follow, and gain things at their level. A great experience, just like any other social media that you would follow. It appeals to the people that it should appeal to, as opposed to people trying to appeal to the people that it should. They've just done a great job, and so they sort of relaunched that this last week. So you can find a link to that in the show notes and be sure that you follow along with that. And then the other thing, new presidency within the presidency of the 70, obviously with the calling of Elder Kieran to be an apostle, there is a little shift and shake within the presidency of the 70. Elder Earl B. Cook is now the senior president, and Elder Marcus B. Nash has been appointed to the 70 presidency. Elder Cook is a native of Ogden. He served as general authority since 2011, served in the Africa Southeast Area Presidency. He also graduated from Weber State and Utah State. He worked in commercial real estate development. That's kind of his background. And then Elder Nash has been a general authority 70 since 2006. He's served in the South America Northwest, the South America West, Africa West, the North America Northeast, and North America Southeast areas. And he also has served as an executive director in the Church History and Correlation Department, the executive director of the Correlation Department, and as a member of the Boundary and Leadership Change Committee. But most recently, he was the executive director of the Missionary Department. While he's been serving 36 new missions created to the point of 450. So pretty cool to see these two gentlemen be appointed, making quick work of getting that blank space filled. I know that online I was noticing a lot of people that are like, "Cool, cool, cool. Two white guys. Why did we do this?" There's some other people that are in the 70. Then I think that people really want to see the representation from all of the church. When you see different people be called, does that strike different to you, or are you like, "Yeah, no, I'm just as like everyone else. Let's make it a potpourri of people"?
Um, Interesting question. I mean, to me, I don't want it to be like, well, it's, we're in the 21st century, so let's call every, a person from every single country and a person of every color to make
Mhm.
sure that it's all good. I think those brethren are there serving the way that God wants them to. Um, but I certainly enjoy seeing, when a new Black 70 is called or this, that, and the other. But, it would feel forced if it's like, okay, for the next 10 years, every single person that's called into the presidency, the 70 or the 70 or what have you, is a
Mhm.
person of color. I would feel, okay, it's a little forced at this point. Let's just call. And, I would think the majority of members still live in, well, maybe that's not, but I mean, the the country with the most dense population of members is the United States. Of course, the majority live outside of it, but as far as like one country, so um there are many white members as well. So I don't have any, issue with that. But
Yeah.
I guess it just depends what, what responsibilities they're filling, what's gonna be best. Hold on, which so is one of them going to be like an area president?
So yeah, so what happens is when you're called into the presidency in the 70, you're in the presidency and then you have other
Right,
responsibilities that are sort of under it, but there are 7 presidents of the 70 and then Elder Cook is going to be the presidents of the presidents because we got to
right.
have the hierarchy so that everyone knows. It's interesting. So you bring up an interesting point that like and this is secular, so everyone go with me for a second, but it has been interesting under President Biden, President of the United States, how he has made almost that concerted effort to do the thing that you're saying, right? Like, let's make sure we've got a Latin base and a black representative and women and all of these groups that may be sometimes underrepresented and to the world and to our country, I think that that has meant something, but has it been in balance? And that's an interesting thing. Certainly, a stark difference from how you see a secular organization run than a religious or specifically our religious organization run. Um, I, I would think that there would be strengths and weaknesses with both being
Yeah,
having those kind of things
I think
happen.
so. I mean, specifically when you're talking about an organization like our church where it's run by revelation, I
Hmm.
just think that would be the wrong approach.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It's such a tricky thing because you have groups of people who haven't been given that opportunity, and then you have people from the group that has always, had opportunity. Let's call it what it is, white
Sure.
men who
Sure.
are very qualified to fill those roles. And so it's it's nuanced. It's tricky. I don't know if either one would is the one to do.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm lost on that.
Yeah, I like the base though of what you say, which is that we know that the Lord has called the people that He's called, right?
Yeah,
And we can take great faith in the people that are called. And as different people get called, we can just hopefully find that testimony or that foundation of like, yeah, God called that person, whatever whatever color they may be. I love that they've been called and qualified by God.
exactly.
Where did you want to go? What story did you want to take next?
One that I really liked was that I had not heard about until you sent me this list was the musicians are invited to submit covers for the Come Follow Me Song of the Week. I hadn't
Oh
heard about
yeah,
this, but this is pretty
yeah.
cool. So musicians in the church are invited to submit original covers to be featured monthly in Come Follow Me. So they understand that there's going to be like a song of the week to kind of assist in bringing the spirit for your study for that week of Come Follow Me. And there's a hymn for each month going forward. And yeah, artists are encouraged to, you know, record an original version, a cover of it, making slight adjustments to like the tone of it and the style and things like that, but of course maintaining the words and the spiritual nature of it. So no like screamo, did you think to pray? That would be cool. I would like to hear at least one of those just to see their take on it. But yeah, I found this very interesting for sure.
Yeah, February is high on the mountaintop. That's February 2024. Did you think to pray March of 2024, and Sweet Hour prayer for April of 2024. But to your point, I was sort of more interested in. I mean, I know that I'll love the ones that get passed along and are inspirational, but I'm
Mhm.
almost more interested in what was submitted that was absolutely not
Shelved.
going to be allowed. Right?
Yeah. That would be really interesting to see. They gave there's a link to the Songs of Devotion album that the church released as kind of like here's an example of changing the style, the stylistic range. I actually love that album. There's a few of those that I listen to on Sunday that are really, really amazing. And the church kind of laid out all the rules for it, and how to make your submission and all that stuff. I'm really interested to see what those submissions are, but I would love like a secret link to the worst submissions that they got. That would be, or I hope that people who don't get on share them on social media or something like that, because I have to know if there's a rap version of High on a Mountaintop.
Yeah,
That would.
or a funk version of Sweet Hour of Prayer, right? Like a big bass slappy, boom, boom,
Mhm.
that kind of.
I
That'd be
think that should make it. If that one's on there, that should make it, in my opinion. But the deadline is February 11th. So yeah, anybody interested, get your submissions in. Make sure you follow the rules, and yeah, I'm excited. Actually, one thing I did forget to tell you in the intro is I just got called as a Sunday school teacher.
okay.
And so I'm thinking about maybe including these songs of the week in the maybe as people are filing in. I'm in a YSA ward now, so
Sure.
class starts about 20 minutes late. So just have that song playing while everyone's filing in, get the spirit going. But yeah, I'm very interested to see what kind of songs come out from that.
I like it too because it allows people to be aware, just like you said, and just like I was before I saw the article. The church does so much that the general body of the church has no idea.
Mhm.
Like, look no further than your gospel library app. And you're like, oh, yeah, that's where the scriptures are. And then you look at literally hundreds of other resources that are in there that if you've never spent any sort of time beyond just going to your Book of Mormon or your New Testament, you're like, wait, there's a collection of speeches from women at the pulpit in the gospel library. Wait, there's the gospel essays are here in the gospel library. It's just fascinating if you spend a little time. So yeah, play it before. I love that. Um, let's see. Where do I want to go with this? I thought this was interesting. Previous guest of the Cultural Hall called as the new managing director for church communication. Aaron Sherinian, a longtime global communication specialist, introduced as the new head of public affairs and media relations for the church. He is the new managing director for church communication. He's been working as the senior vice president of global reach for Deseret Management Corp. He's 51. Previous guest, I want to say episode 84 of the Cultural Hall, though you'll be able to find the link in the show notes, thanks to Megan who listens and puts the show notes together. It was interesting, his focus. He talks about in the meeting, my focus is on how the Savior's way of communication was all about finding ways to reach everyone. He told the Deseret News, communications for the Church of Jesus Christ should always be generous, inclusive, and personal. And just an amazing episode, both he and his wife, worth going back and listening to. But the internet lost its mind, a collection of the internet, when he was called, because in his profile online, he had his preferred pronouns of he and him. And people are like, oh, okay, now we got a pronoun guy. Okay. Is that what is this? Is the church is headquarters? Are we a bunch of lefties? Like, it was insane, the things that you saw from people just because he said, here are my preferred pronouns.
Actually, I didn't know about that part. Um, that's interesting. Here's the thing with that I feel everyone has preferred pronouns,
Yeah.
even if you don't put them on your, even if you're the most right wingist, like you're a bird flying with two right wings. Uh, you wouldn't like if someone called you anything other than your preferred pronoun. So I just don't see a problem with that. There are people who that really, really matters to. And so if just putting that in your bio helps them address you or communicate with you, I don't know. I just don't see why that has to be such a big problem.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
have it in any of my social media, but I don't know. It doesn't bother me one bit if somebody does.
Yeah, I mean, for me, so I mean, I have mine, and I guess the thing that I have thought when I put it is that I wanted to have that. People will say virtue signaling, and I guess it is, but in like a pure sense of virtue signaling, in that, like, I want people to know when they're interacting with me that I am a safe place that they can be comfortable with, and I think that maybe putting that out there means something. But I don't see it any different for me personally than like when I post something with a rainbow flag that says, "Listen, I'm LGBTQ friendly. I'm not." Homosexual or anything else, but I am friendly. I am an ally to those people. I am a safe place for people to be able to come and to talk to. And I feel like, well, what I almost said was, let me think about if I want to. What I feel like is I feel like Jesus would want everyone to feel like they could come to him. I'm by no means making myself a comparison to Jesus, but I feel like there was never anything where he's like, you, and you, yes, absolutely not you over there, not you, you, okay, come on, like everyone, bring them all to me is what Jesus said. And if we can help people feel comfortable, and that's a little way that we can do it, that's great. But I'll have to send you a link to a couple of the threads. Lost their mind at the fact that someone was called to be the public relations for the church and had pronouns. Just insanity ensued.
That is crazy. I mean, you said you're not trying to compare yourself to Jesus, but that's exactly who we are supposed to try and emulate.
Yeah.
And if we're trying to approach people to share the gospel with them and help them change their lives, I think that has to start with making people comfortable and finding some kind of common ground where I'm comfortable with putting this out of myself so that you feel comfortable talking to me, and now let's build a relationship and share the
Yeah.
gospel. I just don't see how you can do it with hostility and being angry about he/him.
Well, I'm going to do it. I'll show you, Taylor. I'm going to be angry, and I'll show you I can do that. What we have a few minutes left. What other stories? Maybe we can bust through a few of these pretty quick. What do you got?
I found it interesting the one about the West End Collegiate Church. So Mormons sign lease at West End Collegiate Church. So this is a church in New York,
Mm-hmm.
correct? Yeah. Was kind of struggling to understand what it is, but I guess what it is, it's going to be a multi-faith building where the church will now have their rooms and this other church has theirs, and there's going to be a third one as well that is not yet identified. And then there are shared spaces like the chapel, the gym, the kitchen, and other rooms. I went to their website. It seems like a pretty interesting place. They have a pastor on call button you can press on their website, so you can
That's cool.
request a prayer session with the pastor there if if you're feeling down or what have you. I just kind of wonder how the church is going to fit in there, but yeah, I don't really know what the use of this building is, but it seems like a pretty cool thing that they're doing.
So Corey K. Ward, who does the Temple Ticker with us, I sort of put him on this a little bit, and from what I gathered from him, because there's going to be some renovations at the Manhattan Temple, which also houses some ward houses. Some ward like levels, right? Because that's how that temple is. Like the fourth floor is the first ward, and the fifth floor is the second ward. I think that those will be closed, and so I think they're just renting this space, and so that ward will meet in that building
So this will
for the
be
time
like
being.
their meeting house.
Yeah, there will be their
I
meeting
was
house.
wondering if I didn't know if it was like for like activities or institute or whatever, but yeah, that seems good. That seems like an amazing opportunity to mingle with other faiths. I think that's awesome.
And have an on-call pastor? Are you kidding me? That's awesome.
Mhm.
The Tabernacle Choir's most popular song. I thought that this was interesting when I saw what number one was, and this is determined by how many times these songs have been streamed. This is according to their YouTube channel. I'll roll through. If you, I know that you probably looked at this. Did you see which one number one was? Were
I
you
did.
surprised? Yeah. I was, I thought that it would be Consider the Lilies or like one that we do something like from Man of La Mancha or something like that, right? Like something that would be secular that people would really like, that that they would come to the Tabernacle Choir for. And what is interesting is the number one, well, I'll go 10-1 real quick. My shepherd will supply my need is number 10. For the beauty of the earth, 9. Angels we've heard on high, I believe in Christ. This is the Christ. Slow down. I'm trying to be like Jesus, the primary song. Kind of interesting. Clocking in at 4. Oh, come all ye faithful at 3. 2, Consider the Lilies. And then the Lord's Prayer is number one, and I was like, that's interesting. The Lord's Prayer is number one, and then you realize it's a collab with the Tabernacle Choir and Bocelli, and it's like,
Ah,
of course,
oh,
it's a
there
seven
you go.
plus milli
Yeah.
song download, that thing.
And so far ahead of all the other songs.
Yeah,
It had over 7 million streams, and the number two had 2.8 million. So
yeah, and
that makes sense.
also so good.
Yeah.
If you've never heard that song before, take the opportunity. Link in the show notes to all 10 of those songs, but you can find that and be able to enjoy those cool things. What else? Stories. What other story got your eye?
Um, Probably the one about, I mean, I know you've spoken briefly about it, I think, on in the cultural hall, but has Mormon Church lost Utah?
Hmm.
McDonaldization of religion has weakened its hold over the Beehive State. Very interesting article. What I was able to, there's almost like fear mongering in it. I feel like talking about all the reasons that could be why we're losing membership in Utah, and then they kind of briefly mention the actual reasons, which are the amount of people who have immigrated to Utah from out of state, and when it talks about the reasons people leave the church, they throw out, all the things that have been in the media. So the financial scandals and the, handling of sex offenders in the church and things like that. And then one of the co-authors of the article then says, but the reason people leave religion isn't usually those things. It's usually they just lose interest and would rather do other things. So I was kind of like, okay, so we could have summed it up much more succinctly than that, but they go into a lot of reasons why the corporate uh, direction of the church is leading people away.
Yeah, so they use the term McDonaldization,
Mhm.
which was first introduced in '93 by George Ritzer. It's the idea that standardizing services in the name of efficiency and probability is what the church has found itself into. Think of things like, our correlation, the fact that we're all studying the same thing, the same week, the same year, and all of those things, and point out that that could be part of the downfall. Right? We love McDonald's.
Mhm.
That's a collective statement. But when you go to McDonald's, I mean, I get a number 7, no pickles, no onions, and a medium Coke. I know that it's going to taste the same way it did last time, the same way it did next time. But you know what it isn't? It is not the same as the burger joint that's literally down at the end of my road, where
Mhm.
James, the guy who I'm pretty sure hasn't washed his apron since he started working there, gives me a hamburger, and I go, hey, have we cleaned the grills? No, we haven't. Thank you, because this tastes fantastic. It's a far cry. It's different than what it is. And I think that there is some validity to the church. Should the church in Utah be the same as the churches in Ghana, as the churches in, Laos, right?
Mhm.
The gospel should be the same, the teaching should be the same, but is there no space to have a little bit of separation? Some people would say no, and some people would say yes, and that's the McDonaldization. They're like, listen, what's unique about it? It's streamlined, it's corporation, it's stiff, it's not individualized, it's not personalized.
Mhm.
I don't know.
I do see that. I mean, I could see how that would maybe now members would maybe choose. It used to be flock to Utah. This is the place to be, and now it's well, the church is everywhere. So I could see some members outside of Utah maybe choosing not to come due to that reason.
Mhm.
They seem to kind of insinuate that it's also why people in Utah are leaving the church. Like, oh well, now everyone has it, so I don't want it. I just don't. I don't know anybody who doesn't want to go to church because now instead of the Boy Scouts, we have the, standard activities and
Right.
everything for young men and young women. But it is definitely interesting. But I think overall it's a good thing, that members in Peru have access to the exact same things that we do here.
Mhm.
But I think there are still things that are individualized. There's certainly things we do in Utah or more frequently that you don't see outside of. I think of like opening a mission call in
Mhm.
Utah. That's like a party. And then
Mhm.
in Peru, I saw a couple kids open their calls, and it was like a very reverent, solemn, almost like ceremony with just like close friends and family. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, I think there are still things we do differently, and that's beautiful, and that's the diversity of the church and of the world. But overall, having the standard curriculum and everything like that, I think is a good thing.
Yeah, I also, as I'm thinking about it, I like that, that it at least is being discussed, and the idea, because what this stems from is there was a recent survey that said essentially where Utah was once a majority, Mormon, LDS, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints member church, that it is almost now minority, depending on which statistic you go by. 42% is the one in the article that we're talking about, but it is a huge shift that needs to exist within the church in Utah, where we used to be able to, and I think wrongfully, assume everyone's a Mormon, everyone knows the thing. And there is now not maybe just as much, but there is a lot of work to be done in Utah. So that laughable call of getting called to Salt Lake or Ogden, before, what are you going to do? Go hang out with the members? It's like, no, I'm going to go teach people who don't know about this, just as there are in other places. Not in the greatest number, but starting to get to that number, right? 42% I still is a lot compared to other states that would have Mormons, but there's opportunities. We got to shift that, especially members in the state of Utah.
Absolutely. So many times I think we just don't share anything because we just assume they either are already a member or they hate the church. And
Yeah.
there are people who have moved here who don't really know much about it. Obviously, they know it's here, but I helped the missionaries in my last ward quite a bit, and they had so much work to do. So it definitely is a shift we should make. Yeah, there's work to be done everywhere. And
Yeah.
now majority of the people here, especially if you live in the Salt Lake Valley like Richie and I do, there's so many people who are not yet members of the church. I say yet. That we can share the gospel with. So
Yeah. A couple quick stories here. The Relief Society celebrating their 182nd anniversary coming up on the 17th of March. There will be a worldwide Relief Society devotional that will be held. President Nelson and the Relief Society presidency, President Johnson, President Dennis, and President Yee will speak to the women during this event. So make sure that you have plans to watch that. You can find more on churchofjesuschrist.org. And you can find that link in the show notes if you want to know more about that devotional. That should be a great, awesome time for the Relief Society to gather together and to celebrate that, Mark. A brewery in Salt Lake City is discontinuing its Deseret IPA after the church issued a trademark-related complaint saying, hey, guys, we're not going to have you do that anymore. Deseret is how we produce other things like, you have the Deseret tomato sauce or applesauce or other products. We do not want people to confuse your beer with something that is from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So we would kindly appreciate it if you no longer make this beer. And they said, okay, large organization that could sue us and take a lot of money from us, we will discontinue said beer. Did they say it exactly like that? No, not really. They were sort of vague in their issuing of it, saying a large nonprofit that does not pay taxes has asked that we stop producing the beer named Deseret IPA. And so they're now essentially selling what they have left, and then they will discontinue it. The brewery is Bewilder Brewing Company, and they recently announced that, and they'll have new products in the future. This is not the first time that the church has done that. There was a right out actually by my house. There was a coffee shop that had the iconic Moroni. I can't remember what the name of the coffee was, but they had the Moroni on their bags, and the church said, listen, I appreciate what you're doing. Not actually. Stop it immediately. Otherwise, we'll sue you. And so the cease and desist as far as that goes. That's just a church protecting its brand, doesn't want to confuse people. Do I think that there are people in Salt Lake that are like, oh, the LDS church is making beer? Great. Now we can drink it. No, I don't think so. But, keep the trademark, keep the brand pure as it was. We got time for about 2 or 3 more. Where did you want to go with this, Taylor?
let's see. Let me find this again. The church is teaming up with Project Hope in Sierra Leone to sorry, real quick. Okay. Church of Jesus Christ implements maternal and newborn care project in Sierra Leone. So basically the church is implementing this care project in Sierra Leone, working together with Project Hope and to educate nurses, midwives, other healthcare professionals to aid in decreasing maternal mortality rates, infant mortality rates, things like that. I was kind of curious about what that level looked like in Sierra Leone. And in most of the statistics I found, they are number 5 in the world,
Jeez.
highest infant mortality rate. I think it was 26 a day. 26 babies a day die before reaching the age of 1 month old. So this is amazing. I hope that it sees huge success and that they can do it in other areas as well. Yeah, I just nothing but good things to say about that. That's awesome.
The church celebrated its 20th anniversary of the Accra Ghana temple dedication just last week on the 11th of January was when that was. It was the 117th temple. So 20 years in Accra, Ghana, which is incredible. I think that this is interesting. This is a much bigger story. And this is where I get to be the old timer and go, you're probably too young to remember this. But when the church bought a portion of Main Street in downtown Salt Lake, they made a deal with Mayor Rocky Anderson and Didi Corradini to be able to purchase the land that was actually the street, right? And a lot of people are like, hey, wait a minute. How come a church, a private organization, can purchase public land and essentially block it off? And for the last 20 some years, the Main Street Plaza, a lot of people got engaged there. It's a thoroughfare. You're able to go from, I believe it's South Temple to North Temple to just walk through. And as the church is renovating Temple Square, that will continue, but with one catch. Later or earlier this week, it was announced that there will be a gate that will be around the Main Street Plaza by Temple Square. That's the part between Temple Square and the Hotel Utah. So from 11:30 p.m. to 6:30 a.m., it will be closed those 7 hours to keep people out of there overnight. Some say a safety concern. Others say it's just the church being able to flex its muscle. Other people saying, listen, if they own the property, they can do what they want with it. Other people saying, well, they should have never been able to own it in the first place. So now people have to walk all the way around. How dare you, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? You'll remember about a decade and a half ago, there was a huge issue because the church said, hey, this is private property. And there were two gentlemen that were there. Security came upon them as they were kissing. And it was a huge, huge story in Salt Lake that these gentlemen were kissing in Main Street Plaza and, just exploded again on the scene. But now the church has said, you know what? Done. We're locking it up. Overnight, it's closed. Can't come. Can't walk through. You're welcome all the other times, but overnight, 11:30 to 6:30, please and no thank you. And there will be people that are gonna try and be like, no, you can't do this. But guess what? Church owns it. It's getting closed. Can't go through.
Done deal. Yep.
Anything else particularly pressing as we go in to ending this? Let's see. Yeah, I think that probably is good. The rest are just sort of celebrity things, and we can catch those real quick in a future episode without any sort of problem. Taylor, how'd you feel about this? Do you like this?
I like it. I hope I didn't fall too flat on my face, but yeah, this is a lot of fun, and I'm learning a lot of things like I always do from articles of news because I don't have too many channels of new church news coming through from anywhere else, so it's always good to catch up and everything. But yeah,
I love it. You all right hanging out with an old guy for the last hour? I mean, I didn't fall asleep. I didn't fall asleep while we were talking. I didn't. I feel like I didn't ramble or tell you about the old days and how much it was so much better back then. We're all right.
You're the youngest guy I know, Richie. I take back what I said.
Yay! Woo! All right, we'll see how you do here as we wrap this out. We hope that this episode has nourished and strengthened your body.
We hope that if you were not healthy enough to listen this week, that you'll be healthy enough to listen next week.
And that when the time comes, you'll be able to travel home in safety. In the meantime, we'll be saving a seat for you
on the back row
of
the
Cultural Hall.